They told the world a lie so many times, it started to sound like the truth. They said you were the problem. They said you were dangerous, unstable, unpredictable, and they said it with full confidence on phone calls, in group chats, in whispers behind your back. But the truth? The truth never needed a spotlight. It just needed time. And now time has caught up with them. The mask they wore has cracked wide open. The same people who once acted like they were innocent are now being watched with disgust. Their silence is loud, their shame is thick, and the world is no longer blind to what really happened. What they did to you wasn't a mistake. It was planned. They sat around tables, sharing fake stories about you. They nodded in agreement, smiling while building a false image of who you were. They played the victim and made sure you looked like the villain. But here's the part that eats them alive today. You didn't fight back. You didn't scream. You didn't beg. You just stood still while the storm raged. That stillness, it wasn't weakness, it was power. And now every person who watched and believed the lie is seeing something they can't unsee. The truth, raw and real, staring them in the face. This message is for every chosen one who stayed quiet when they could have shouted. It's for every soul who felt abandoned while the world clapped for your destruction. If you're here, if you're listening, then thank you for being part of this mission. Press the like button and subscribe. It's your way of sending this truth even further. Let's make sure no one can pretend they didn't hear it. Because now it's their silence that sounds guilty. It's their shaky voice that can't finish a sentence. The same people who once looked proud when you walked into the room now look panicked. They know they can't erase what's been exposed. Screenshots, recordings, patterns, they're all out. And not just in private, but public. This is what it looks like when the universe steps in. This is what it looks like when lies collapse under their own weight. You were framed. And now, the frame is empty, shattered, worthless. People who once smiled in your face are now deleting old messages, hiding from questions, and giving fake apologies behind closed doors. But it's too late. The stain won't come off. The story changed. You're not the outsider anymore, they are. You're not the one being questioned, they are. You're not the one who needs to explain anything, they are. And deep down, every single one of them knows it. Do you feel it? That shift in the air, that tension in the room when your name comes up now. It's not pity, it's not anger, it's fear. You survived the setup, you lived through the fire, and you didn't lose yourself. And now, you're walking out with something they can never take back. Your name cleared, your strength proven, and your story finally told the right way. They can't stand it. Not because they feel bad, but because they lost control of the narrative. This is your moment of quiet justice. It didn't need cameras, it didn't need a stage. It just needed truth to show up. And now it has. Let the world look. Let them whisper. Let them wonder how you made it through. You don't need revenge when the truth is this loud. You don't need closure when the whole world is watching them fall apart under the weight of their own lies. So remember this. You never needed to fight dirty. You just needed to survive. And now that you did, their shame is louder than anything they ever said about you. That's the power of being chosen. That's the beauty of letting the universe do the heavy lifting. What you're walking into next is not a comeback. It's the truth finally catching up to the lie and blowing it to pieces. And now, chosen one, if you've made it this far, you already feel it. That shift, that quiet fire rising in your chest. Because this isn't just a story, it's your story. And if you're really one of the few who were framed, blamed, and left standing in the wreckage, then don't go anywhere. Drop the number 777 in the comments if you feel the weight of their lies finally cracking. This message was meant to find you, and the fact that you're still here, that means you're not done yet. So take a breath, stand taller, and prepare yourself, because we're about to walk through this step by step. And believe me, if you're truly one of the chosen ones, you won't be able to look away. Let's get into it. Number 1, they tried to rise by burying you alive. They built castles out of your pain, and now they're choking on the dust. They didn't just talk behind your back, they built careers off it. They turned your quiet pain into their personal spotlight, performing purity while dripping in hypocrisy. Every move they made was strategic, every whisper rehearsed, every fake smile planned. They didn't destroy you by accident, they designed it. It wasn't chaos, it was choreography. They studied your patterns, your pauses, your kindness, and then used your very qualities as ammunition. It was like watching someone steal your reflection, twist it into something ugly, and then convince the world that you were the fraud. And the worst part, people believed it. Because people love theatre more than truth. For years, they painted themselves as saints, soft voices, fake empathy, crocodile tears. They were never trying to expose you. They were trying to elevate themselves by standing on your name. They didn't win through talent or character. They won through performance. They sold a false story about you because they knew the crowd was hungry for drama, not accuracy. And the crowd bought it. Because in a world addicted to gossip, lies spread faster than facts. But here's the part they never prepared for. Truth doesn't die just because it's buried. It waits, it breathes under the dirt, and when it rises, it doesn't come back quietly, it comes back roaring. And now, the roar has begun. You can feel it in the way their confidence has cracked. You can see it in their eyes when they spot you in public, the twitch, the panic, the guilt that leaks through forced smiles. They know the universe has flipped the mirror. What they once used to decorate their image is now reflecting everything they tried to hide. You might ask, why did they do it? Because they couldn't become you, so they tried to destroy you. They couldn't match your energy, so they made you look unstable. They couldn't silence your influence, so they tried to make you untrustworthy. Jealousy is the oldest parasite. It feeds off light it cannot create. You became their obsession because your presence made their pretense look small. That's the truth they could never face, so they created a version of you that was easier to hate. They built their reputation on your ruin, but what happens when the truth comes out? Their foundation collapses. Every compliment they ever received turns into a reminder of what they stole. Every follower they gained starts to question the story. The people who once cheered for them now scroll through old screenshots, wondering how they missed the signs. The applause has gone silent, replaced by disgust. They didn't just lose credibility, they lost the illusion of being good. Because no matter how hard they tried to act righteous, cruelty eventually leaves a stain that no public apology can wash off. And while they crumble under the weight of their fake image, look at you. You're still standing. You didn't need to fight dirty to win. You didn't need to shout to prove anything. You just kept moving, and time did the work for you. The same stillness they mistook for defeat was the calm before their storm. Every silent day you survived was building your case. Every insult you ignored was writing your redemption. And now, the story they wrote about you is being shredded, line by line, lie by lie. Think about it. What kind of person climbs higher by stepping on someone else's dignity? That's not success. That's desperation dressed up as ambition. They didn't have real talent, so they used you as their content. They didn't have real character, so they borrowed your name for attention. But the universe doesn't let theft go unpunished. What they built through manipulation is now collapsing through exposure. They used to walk tall in their false confidence, but now they flinch at every whisper because they know those whispers are about them this time. You see, the universe has a strange way of balancing the scales. The same eyes that once looked down on you are now looking at them with disgust. The same mouths that repeated lies about you are now saying, "I can't believe I ever trusted them." And that's the beauty of poetic justice. It doesn't announce itself. It unfolds naturally, slowly, brutally, publicly. Your name was never destroyed. It was being purified. Their name was never built. It was being inflated. And now that the air has leaked out, all that's left is the truth. They never had real strength, only borrowed power. And when that power source, you, cut off access, they began to decay. Their glow was never their own. It was a reflection of your light bouncing off their lies. But here's where it gets powerful for you, chosen one. Every attempt they made to bury you only made you harder to ignore. Every smear campaign made you more mysterious, more untouchable. People are beginning to realize that your silence was grace, not guilt. That your isolation was clarity, not exile. You didn't disappear, you evolved. And now, the same audience that once doubted you is sitting in silence, watching the truth unfold like a movie they never saw coming. They built their kingdom out of your pain, but they forgot one thing. Pain doesn't disappear, it transforms. And now, that same energy they weaponized has become the light exposing every lie. Their glory was borrowed and their downfall is earned. They climbed the mountain using your name as a step, but they forgot that mountains shift. And when the truth quakes, the fall is always harder for those who stood the highest on lies. So, hold your head high, chosen one. The world isn't just seeing you differently, they're feeling the difference. Every rumor they spread now tastes bitter in their own mouths. Every alliance they built around your defamation is turning to dust. And you're still here, stronger than ever, wearing your truth like armor. You didn't need revenge. The truth handled it better than any plan ever could. They tried to rise by burying you alive, but they forgot that seeds grow underground. You didn't just survive their plot, you bloomed from it. And now, every single person who believed their lies has to face the garden that grew from your pain. The one they said would never exist. The one they said would never rise again. And it's beautiful, isn't it? Watching the same people who once mocked your silence now struggle to find words. Watching the same crowd that once celebrated your end now choke on regret. That's what happens when truth walks back into the room. It doesn't need an introduction. It's undeniable. And you, chosen one, you were never the villain in their story. You were the truth they couldn't control. Number 2, their lies were just a mirror facing backward. Accusation is the weapon of the guilty. It says more about them than you. When someone frames you, they're painting a picture of their own shame and hoping no one looks too closely. The louder they pointed at you, the more they were trying to distract from the mess behind them. A lie told with confidence isn't truth. It's a confession with makeup on. They didn't frame you because they had evidence. They framed you because they had secrets. Understand this, chosen one, they didn't drag your name through the mud to reveal something about you. They did it to hide something about themselves. What they accused you of was never a revelation. It was a cover-up. They took their own guilt, dipped it in your silence, and threw it at your image like paint. And for a while, it stuck. But now the paint is peeling, the frame is cracked, and what's underneath is loud, ugly, and undeniably theirs. Framing you was never about justice. It was about survival. Their own lies were rotting from the inside, and they needed a scapegoat before anyone caught the smell. You became that scapegoat. Why? Because you were easy to target. You didn't fight dirty. You didn't clap back. You didn't chase rumors. Your silence made you the perfect canvas. But here's the catch. They mistook your silence for permission. They thought your peace meant weakness. They had no idea it meant power. Imagine this. A thief breaks into a house and plants evidence in a stranger's bag before running. When the truth finally comes out, that bag doesn't just hold false accusations, it holds fingerprints, DNA, timelines. And suddenly, the whole frame becomes the very thing that exposes them. That's what's happening now. Every word they spoke, every accusation they threw, is now circling back like a boomerang they can't dodge. The same lies they used to bury you are now writing the report on them. They accused you of arrogance, but they couldn't handle not being the smartest person in the room. They accused you of manipulation, but they were the ones pulling strings, setting traps, twisting stories. They said you were selfish, but only because you stopped letting them feed on your kindness. Every insult they threw was projection dressed as protection. They weren't protecting others from you, they were protecting themselves from being exposed. You might be wondering, why didn't people see it? Because the story was too clean, too detailed, too emotional. They rehearsed it like a script, with fake tears and false humility. People believed them because guilt knows how to wear a human face. But the universe is a better detective than any lie detector. And time? Time watches silently and remembers everything. Time is the courtroom that never closes. And the trial is over. The verdict is in. Their performance has unraveled, and the truth is shining through the cracks. Think about how perfectly they tailored the lie. That's not just slander, that's confession. Nobody makes up stories that specific unless they're describing something they've done themselves. They accused you of being controlling while secretly manipulating entire groups of people. They claimed you were fake while changing masks with every new audience. They tried to paint you as unstable, but they were the ones shaking, desperate to hold the narrative together. What they said about you was never your reflection. It was theirs. You were just the mirror. Imagine someone throwing mud at your window every day, hoping it makes you look dirty. But one day, the sun rises. And that mud, it's dry, cracked, falling apart. And suddenly, everyone can see through the window. Everyone sees the truth. That's the moment we're in now. Their false image is collapsing. People are remembering the little things, the contradictions, the patterns, the way their story changed too many times, the way you stayed consistent even while silent. Chosen one, this is your confirmation. You never needed to defend yourself. Their lies had expiration dates. Their guilt had fingerprints. And now, the shame is no longer yours to carry. You were never the villain. You were the witness. And now, the whole room has turned to face the real culprit. You know what's even more powerful? You didn't expose them. They exposed themselves. In trying to destroy you, they destroyed their own credibility. The more they talked, the more they revealed. That's the thing about liars. They always think they're smarter than the room, but eventually, their words start tripping over each other. They forget what they said. They can't keep up the mask. And the same crowd they fooled begins to look closer, think deeper, and feel the difference. What once felt like concern now feels like control. What once seemed honest now stinks of fear. Imagine a snake shedding its skin. That's them right now, peeling under the weight of truth, hoping no one notices what's underneath. But it's too late. People are noticing. People are disgusted, not just by the lies, but by the intention behind them. It wasn't just about hurting you, it was about protecting their fake image at any cost. And that cost It's finally being paid in full. You were patient, and that patience aged better than any mask they ever wore. The truth has taken its time, but it has arrived like a storm they can't outrun. Their confession is everywhere now, not in a courtroom, but in energy, in the way people treat them, in the way their old friends go silent, in the way respect turns to suspicion. And your name? It's clearing itself, not through arguments, but through time, pattern, and exposure. So hold steady, chosen one. You didn't just survive a setup, you outlived their disguise. You didn't just make it through the lie, you became the proof that the lie wasn't enough. They thought they could rewrite your character, but now the script is flipped. The audience has left the show, and all that's left is a stage full of guilt and broken spotlights. What they meant to bury you has become the loudest evidence of their own corruption. The frame, it's shattered. The truth, it's undeniable. And the world, it's waking up. One whisper, one realization, one "I knew something felt off" at a time. They're not just exposed, they're revealed. And you, chosen one, you're not just rising. You've become the reason people are learning how to spot projection, how to see through the lies, how to trust energy over appearances. You were never their mistake. You were their mirror. And now that mirror is shining brighter than ever, and they can't stand the reflection. Number 3. They demonized you just to sleep at night. The easiest way to dodge guilt is to put a mask on the innocent and call it justice. They didn't destroy your name for revenge, they did it for comfort. They couldn't carry the weight of what they did to you, so they dumped it on your back. That's the truth. It wasn't revenge, it wasn't justice, it was guilt avoidance, plain and dirty. Your silence became their medicine. Your reputation became their mattress. Every lie they told about you was a sleeping pill to quiet their conscience. They needed a villain, and you were the easiest target because you weren't fighting back. You weren't loud, vengeful, or dramatic. You just existed, and that alone made them uncomfortable. Why? Because deep down, they knew they broke something that never harmed them. So they did what weak minds always do when cornered by guilt. They rewrote the story. You were unstable, you were changing, you were hard to deal with. They told themselves those lies until it felt true. They repeated the story so many times, even they forgot the original script. That's not logic. That's survival instinct. It's easier to believe you're the hero than admit you ruined someone who only ever offered peace. They didn't just lie to others, they lied to themselves. And it worked. For a while. But lies have short legs, and truth never gets tired. Slowly, the image they built started to bend. People looked at you, calm, consistent, unbothered, and started asking, "Wait, this is the person they warned us about." The energy didn't match the narrative. The villain never spoke badly. The villain never retaliated. The villain still walked with grace. And just like that, their lullaby of lies turned into a soundtrack of anxiety. Imagine lighting a fire just to stay warm at night, only to wake up choking on the smoke. That's them now. The same lie that helped them sleep is now suffocating them in the dark. Their fake peace is cracking. The silence that once comforted them is now filled with echoes of the truth. And it haunts. Not just them, but everyone who bought the lie. Friends who once sided with them now feel shame in their bones, because now they see it. You weren't the storm, you were the shelter. Your name was never dirty, it was used, and now that the truth is crawling back into every room they tried to seal off, they can't run from it. They harmed someone who never deserved it. They twisted facts to shield their ego. And now, they're forced to sit with what they did. That's why they're restless. That's why they avoid eye contact. That's why they're paranoid, even when no one is speaking. They needed you to be the villain so they could keep playing innocent. But that fantasy has collapsed. The mask they gave you never fit, and now everyone sees it. The same story that helped them sleep, it's become the nightmare they wake up to. The universe is showing them exactly what they tried to bury, and it has your name on it, untouched. Let that settle in, chosen one. You didn't just survive the lie, you outlived their need for it. Number 4, your breakdown was their loyalty test, and they failed. Betrayal doesn't just expose others, it reveals who they always were without the mask. You weren't the crisis. You were the mirror they couldn't escape. Loyalty means nothing until it's tested, and most people fail without even blinking. What you went through wasn't just unfair, it was engineered. Not by you, not even by them fully, but by a force greater than ego, louder than lies. It wasn't about your downfall, it was about their exposure. The chaos didn't create betrayal, it revealed it. The moment they saw a chance to turn on you, they didn't hesitate. They didn't stop to ask questions. They didn't pause to check the truth. They saw you stumble, and instead of offering a hand, they reached for their phone to spread the news. That wasn't an accident. That was a test. And most of them failed miserably. The minute you were framed, the room shifted. People got quiet. Some vanished. Some laughed. And the ones who stayed, they clapped softly, pretending to care while sipping the drama like wine. Why? Because your fall made them feel taller. Your silence made their gossip louder. But what they didn't know is that the spotlight was never on you. It was on them. Every reaction was being watched. Every comment, every excuse, every "I didn't know what to believe" recorded. They thought they were spectators in your storm, but they were actually being graded on how they showed up, or more accurately, how they didn't. Loyalty means nothing when it's easy. It only becomes real when it's inconvenient. And for them, loyalty was the first thing to evaporate. Not because they didn't care, but because they cared more about being accepted than being right. They weren't loyal to truth. They were loyal to comfort, they were loyal to fear, and they betrayed you to protect the false peace they live in. Imagine a lab test. Drop a single chemical into a clear solution and see how it reacts. That's what your suffering did. It triggered the true content of people's hearts. And what came out wasn't pretty. People you defended couldn't even speak your name. People you trusted turned away like they never knew you. That wasn't coincidence. That was a soul-level exposure, a cleansing. Your breakdown was the match. Their response was the smoke. You were the experiment, and you passed. They were the ones being studied, and they failed. Not because they said something wrong, but because they stayed silent when it mattered. Because they believed lies they wanted to be true. Because they mistook your silence as guilt when it was grace. That's why they're uncomfortable now. It's not what they did to you that haunts them. It's what it revealed about themselves. You weren't losing people. You were shedding masks. You weren't abandoned. You were being shown who never truly stood with you to begin with. And now they're the ones stuck with the memory. The moment they were needed and vanished. The moment they could have shown loyalty and chose gossip. The moment they could have defended someone real and sided with the performance. And now that the truth is unfolding, it's not you under judgment, it's them, their actions, their silence, their betrayal. That's what makes the air feel heavy now. That's what makes their skin crawl when they hear your name. You didn't just survive a lie, you became the line in the sand. The light that showed who was fake, who was fragile, and who was only ever loyal when it was easy. And now, You walk away clean. They walk away exposed. That's not punishment, it's justice. Real justice. Quiet, brutal, permanent. Because loyalty can't be faked when truth shows up, and truth just walked in the room. Number 5. The frame was the frequency check, and they failed the signal test. Lies and truth don't share the same wavelength. You can always tell who's tuned into which. When deception became loud, their reactions revealed their real station. You didn't lose people, they just couldn't breathe at your altitude. This wasn't just a rumor, it was a frequency check, a spiritual broadcast that split the crowd clean down the middle. When the lie about you started spreading, the universe didn't just sit back. It was watching who tuned in, who stayed silent, and who changed the channel. Everyone exposed their wavelength without realizing it. Because truth and deception can't coexist, they vibrate on different levels. And when that storm hit, you didn't just see who believed the noise, you saw who was built for your frequency. The smear campaign wasn't just gossip, it was a sorting system. The universe didn't test people with comfort, it tested them with chaos. It whispered, "Let's see who trusts energy over headlines." Some failed instantly. They didn't need proof. They believed the worst version of you because it matched what their jealousy already wanted to hear. Their souls were tuned to low frequencies, envy, gossip, judgment. Truth doesn't echo there, it dies there. But the few who stood firm, who didn't jump on the bandwagon, who looked past the noise, those are your real ones. They didn't need screenshots or stories. They could feel your innocence. That's the thing about high-frequency people. They don't need proof. They sense energy, not narratives. Even when everyone else was talking, they said, "Something's not right." They couldn't explain it, but they stayed loyal anyway. That's not emotion, that's alignment. Imagine a radio. You turn the dial and all you hear is static until you find the right station. That's what the universe did. It turned the dial of your life, letting the static of fake friends and false believers fade out until only those who match your vibration remain. The frame wasn't your destruction, it was your tuning process. It showed who could handle your truth and who couldn't survive it. And here's the truth that hurts them most. The ones who believed the lies didn't betray you, they revealed themselves. Their spirit simply couldn't recognize authenticity because it doesn't live inside them. Their reaction was a confession. Every rumor they repeated, every moment they stayed silent while you were under attack, was their frequency exposing itself. You didn't lose a community, you gained clarity. Now that the truth has come out, everything looks different. People who once appeared powerful look drained. People who seemed respected now look desperate. Why? Because when the energy shifts, masks start to fall. The frame stripped away their polish and left only vibration. And the universe doesn't grade people on appearances, it grades them on energy. Those who stood with you without needing proof, their loyalty glows now. You can see it in how peace follows them. But those who sided with deception, their names are fading into the static. They can't stand the light that truth brings because it exposes every false move, every dishonest impulse, every low-frequency decision. Imagine standing on a mountain while others gasp for air below. You didn't climb there by luck. You rose because your spirit stayed clean when others polluted theirs with lies. They couldn't breathe where you are now, not because they weren't capable, but because their energy never matched yours. The frame was the test that revealed that. So don't mourn who didn't stand by you. They weren't built for your wavelength. Their silence, their doubt, their betrayal, it was never about you. It was about what their energy could and couldn't handle. And now, with the truth exposed, The universe has separated the genuine from the performative, the loyal from the opportunistic, the pure from the pretenders. This wasn't a punishment, it was purification. You didn't just survive the lie, you outlasted the static. And now, every frequency that once distorted your name is fading. You stand clear, untuned, undeniable, resonating only with truth. Number 6. You crushed them with calm while they waited for chaos. You didn't clear your name with noise, you did it with patience they couldn't fake. Real strength doesn't perform, it endures. They were counting on your meltdown. That was their final move, bait you into a reaction they could twist. One outburst, one emotional slip, and they'd point the finger and say, "Told you so." But you never gave it to them. You didn't panic. You didn't clap back. You didn't scramble to explain. And that silence, it was louder than any defense ever could have been. They wanted fireworks. You gave them stillness, and that destroyed their entire plan. They thought your calm was fear. It wasn't. It was control. They mistook your restraint for weakness because they've never met anyone who doesn't need the spotlight to feel seen. But you didn't just stand still. You stood tall. Day after day, you let lies roll off your name without ever stepping into the mud. And with every quiet breath you took, their accusations lost oxygen. You weren't playing the long game, you were the long game. Their drama faded fast, your peace held steady. They needed instant chaos, you gave them timeless character. They called you unstable, but you never flinched. They called you fake, but your silence stayed real. And now? That same stillness they mocked is the very thing proving them wrong. You didn't fight the lie, you outlived it, and that's what they'll never forget. Number 7. Their lies are melting through the mask. Lies don't fade, they ferment until the stench betrays the liar. Truth doesn't rush. It waits, and when it rises, it ruins everything built against it. Every false word they spoke about you has started to rot. At first, it looked believable, smooth, polished, controlled, but like radiation, their lies began leaking through every wall they built to contain them. That's what deceit does. It corrodes from the inside. The performance that once earned sympathy now reeks of desperation. The tone of their voice has changed. What used to sound sure now trembles with guilt. What once looked confident now looks staged. Lies are heavy things. They require constant maintenance, new stories, new excuses, more manipulation. But truth needs no rehearsal. It just waits. And while they were busy repainting their illusion, time was working quietly in your favor. Their lies aged like acid, eating through their charm, their credibility, and their fake confidence. You can see it now in their body language, the twitch in their smile, the hesitation in their words. Even their supporters can feel it, though they pretend not to. That uneasy gut feeling. That's intuition realizing it's been fooled. The beauty of time is that it doesn't erase. It exposes. Each lie they told is now a fossil, a timestamp of their betrayal, and people aren't just angry, they're disgusted. Not because the truth is new, but because deep down they always sensed it. Their spirit recognized the rot long before their mind admitted it. Now the masks are cracking, the performances are falling apart, and the illusion is collapsing under its own weight. They lived inside their lies so long it became their identity, and that's the punishment. They can't escape it. Their deceit is radioactive, burning through their own story, while your truth stands untouched. Every single time, the lie dies first. Number 8. They hid you in shame, not knowing it was your shield. They thought they were burying you, but they were just planting the proof of your strength. The stage they built for your humiliation became the mirror for their exposure. What looked like your lowest moment wasn't punishment, it was protection. When the lies hit hardest and the world turned its back, you weren't being broken down, you were being hidden. The universe covered you in temporary darkness, not to bury you, but to keep you safe while truth gathered its witnesses. Shame was never your label, it was your camouflage. While they stood in the spotlight, desperate for applause, they didn't realize that same light was their undoing. Every smirk, every fake, concerned conversation, every proud step they took on your supposed downfall was recorded in full view. They wanted validation, they wanted glory, and in chasing it, they exposed every crack in their integrity. The universe doesn't just protect, it plays chess, and this was checkmate in slow motion. Imagine being placed underground, not in a coffin, but in a greenhouse. That's what happened to you. The soil felt heavy, the silence unbearable, but it was nourishment. While they performed for recognition, you were being rebuilt. The same shame that was meant to silence you has turned into your proof of endurance. And now the light is shifting. The spotlight they fought to control now burns them, while it reflects off you with quiet brilliance. They performed for applause, you endured for truth, and now every stage they built for fame has turned into evidence of their fraud. You weren't forgotten, you were reserved for the reveal. Number 9, they dragged your name in dirt, but the universe was engraving it in gold. While they were screaming lies down here, the universe was writing truth in ink that never fades. They tried to stain your name, but all they did was stamp it on history with fireproof grace. While they slandered you in group chats, laughed behind screens, and watched your name unravel in public, something sacred was happening behind the scenes. Every false word, every crooked accusation, they weren't destroying your destiny. They were documenting your strength. You were never collapsing. You were being carved, not in the spotlight of humans, but in the quiet halls of higher power where real authority lives. They thought they were assassinating your character, but all they did was elevate it. The universe doesn't watch claps, it watches conduct, and while they debated your worth out loud, your value had already been declared in silence. Every moment you didn't fight back, every time you chose peace over pettiness, it was counted. Not as weakness, but as weight, real weight. The kind that moves doors, not crowds. They couldn't see it, but every betrayal, every smear was unlocking another level. That's why your vindication feels different. It's not just public, it's personal, it's spiritual. The shame they threw at you became your promotion letter. The gossip they used became your resume. You weren't just proven innocent, you were crowned with authority they can't touch. You didn't just survive the frame, you stepped into your next season because of it. That's why everything's shifting now, not because people finally get it, but because the universe already did, and it's moving in your favor whether they clap or choke on it. They tried to erase you, but ended up writing your legend. Number 10, they couldn't destroy the facts, so they twisted the mirror. When the truth couldn't be touched, they tried to fog the glass you were shining through. Weak people don't fight reality, they try to poison how others perceive it. They knew they couldn't beat your results, they couldn't touch your track record, so instead they launched a war on your reflection. When they realized the facts were stacked in your favor, they turned to fiction. Not with logic, but with whispers. They didn't need evidence, they just needed enough eyes to squint at you sideways. This was never about what you did. It was about making others question who you are. They weaponized perception because perception is easier to control than truth. A rumor moves faster than proof. An image is easier to edit than character. And that's what they bet on. If they blurred your reputation long enough, maybe the world wouldn't bother looking for clarity. They spread distortion like perfume, hoping it would mask the truth beneath it. But lies, like cheap scent, fade fast under pressure. And pressure came. Slowly, the image cracked. The performance broke, their calm turned into stuttering, their stories shifted, and even those who once nodded along started asking questions. Something didn't sit right. Their spirit knew before their mind did. This ain't the full story. Meanwhile, you stayed steady. No panic, no games, just proof, in action, in presence, in endurance. You never had to defend the truth. You were the truth. And now that the fog has lifted, the mirror they tried to bend has snapped back into focus. What's left? Not their version of you, but the real you, untouched, unbothered, undeniable. Number 11, they built your grave, but fell into it themselves. They planned your downfall like a show, not knowing they were the ones under the spotlight. You didn't unmask them. Their obsession with destroying you made them rip it off themselves. Every lie they told about you echoed louder than they expected. Not toward you, but back onto them. Every time they twisted your name, exaggerated a moment, or staged concern, they didn't realize they were broadcasting their own character. The smear campaign wasn't a reveal of your flaws, it was their slow unmasking. The more they tried to convince the world you were dangerous, the clearer it became who was really hiding something. They thought they were writing your ending, but they were writing their own exposure, and the script. It flipped. You didn't fight, you didn't plead, you just stood still, and that drove them insane. Because when you refused to fall apart, their desperation got sloppy. They started pushing harder, exposing more, unraveling in public, while you held your peace like armor. Imagine someone trying to bury you with shovels full of lies, not realizing the pit was forming beneath their own feet. That's exactly what happened. They were so focused on your destruction that they didn't feel the ground shift beneath them. And now, the crowd is watching. But this time, the gasps aren't for you. They're for the ones who played puppeteer and got tangled in their own strings. Their performance has ended, the mask is gone, and the world finally sees who was real all along. You didn't just outlive the lie, you became the mirror that showed everyone what was hiding in plain sight. Number 12, they framed you because your presence shattered their illusion. Nobody frames the harmless, they frame the ones who make their mask slip. They didn't fear your mistakes, they feared your mirror. Here's the truth they'll never admit, not even to themselves. You were framed because you were feared, not disliked, not misunderstood, feared. Because people don't attack what they can ignore, they attack what threatens to expose the truth they've buried under performance. And that's exactly what you did, just by existing. They saw something in you long before you saw it in yourself. You didn't need to speak loudly. Your silence made the whole room adjust. You didn't chase attention, yet eyes followed you. You didn't manipulate. But somehow, you held influence they couldn't mimic, buy, or control. That's what made them panic. You weren't playing their game, and that made you unpredictable, untouchable, unreplicable. So they did the only thing small people do when they meet someone too real for their world. They tried to distort your image before it revealed theirs. The lies weren't about truth, they were about interruption. They wanted to make people pause just long enough to miss your rise. If they couldn't stop you, they'd try to slow you down with shadows. But they miscalculated one thing. Your light doesn't need permission to shine, and in trying to cover it, they only lit it up more. The whisper campaign became a spotlight. The smear became a sermon. Now the room sees clearly. Not because you yelled louder, but because you lasted longer. Your presence stayed steady while their story fell apart. Their fear built the trap, but it also exposed their weakness. And now, what was meant to stain you has turned into your spotlight, not because you fought, but because truth endures. You weren't framed because you were fragile. You were framed because you were the flame that showed what was fake. Number 13. You didn't just outlive the lie. You became the blueprint for justice. They tried to make you an example, but the universe flipped it, and now you are the standard. Real justice doesn't roar, it restores, and you became the proof. What they meant as your execution turned out to be your elevation. They didn't just fail to destroy you, they unknowingly built the stage that would redefine what justice really looks like. You didn't scream for sympathy. You didn't chase revenge. You simply stood. And that posture shifted everything. The universe didn't just watch, it responded. Not with punishment through rage, but with precision through alignment. While they were busy performing, you were embodying truth. While they twisted your name, you walked in such undeniable integrity that the lie began to rot on its own. That's the power of stillness. You didn't need to fight back. You became the contradiction to their entire narrative. Your very existence under pressure turned into a silent verdict they couldn't erase. And now, the tables haven't just turned, they've been rebalanced. The ones who framed you are caught in the stories they created, not because you cursed them, but because the energy they poured out came right back home. The universe doesn't miss. It returns everything to sender with interest, and your grace became the evidence. You didn't just clear your name, you built a model, a living lesson in restraint, discipline, and unshakable alignment. Your trial wasn't about guilt or innocence. It was about revealing what happens when truth is attacked and still refuses to break. That's not survival, that's spiritual strategy. Now, your name walks ahead of you, not because people finally believed you, but because truth confirmed you. What was meant to bury you became the bricks of your legacy. You didn't just survive the frame, you rewrote the rules on how justice really works. And so, chosen one, after everything they threw at you, the lies, the setup, the smear campaigns, you didn't just survive, you transcended. You became the living proof that when the universe backs you, no frame can hold you. Let this be a reminder. Their attempt to break you only built your legacy. If this message lit something in your spirit, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with someone walking through their own storm. And in the comments, drop 777 if you know you were framed because you're a force. Let the world see that you're still standing, louder than ever.